That the motion be agreed to. Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. The Smoke-Free Environments Controls and Enforcement Amendment Bill will today receive near total consensus support in the House. And I think amongst all the things to celebrate about this piece of legislation, that possibly is one of the greatest celebrations that we should note today, is the way the House has come together on this piece of legislation and how far a number of parties have come over the years from previous positions on tobacco enforcement, tobacco control measures that have occurred. I would like to congratulate the Minister, Tariana Turia, for introducing this legislation and for bringing it to this final reading now, to the point where we are at the most 2 years away now from the total eradication of those tobacco displays. And that is just fantastic. Within a year, we'll see most of them gone, and the stragglers will be tidied up over the following year. And that is something that we can all smile about, and it's great news, and I congratulate the Minister. I too would like to note and acknowledge the people who have taken leadership roles over the years. We go back to Right Honourable Helen Clark. We think of people like Tuku Morgan, Stevie Chadwick, and of course my colleagues on the Health Select Committee, and also, of course, I had the pleasure of being a temporary member of the Māori Affairs Select Committee for their inquiry, which of course was initiated by Hone Harawira, well chaired by Tau Henare, and of course the Health Select Committee very well chaired by Dr Paul Hutchison. Everybody is just another part of this great journey. We've spoken so much about the journey. There has been a journey over decades now of various pieces of legislation, but there certainly has been a journey over this term of Parliament. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but we have come a long way from the position that was held at early on in this term of Parliament, where it was believed by the government that there was no evidence in favour of taking this move. The Minister, I acknowledge, used her position to move the government away from their position and to get this bill introduced. That is fantastic. It is an amazing achievement for the Minister, and it is an amazing achievement for this Parliament. I hope that this sets the precedent for future tobacco control legislation, that the days of the bitter arguments are behind us now, and that this type of consensus is what we will see whenever we seek to clamp down further on tobacco. And I agree with the Minister, there is more work to be done. We've set a bold, ambitious goal of making New Zealand smoke-free by 2025, and whilst this is a component of achieving it, this is not the silver bullet by any stretch of the imagination, and there is a lot more work to do. But I take a lot of heart from the support that this piece of legislation has received from around the House. We do know, of course, Mr Speaker, we all know the reasons why reducing smoking rates in New Zealand are so important. 5,000 New Zealanders die every year from smoking-related diseases. That means just in the term of this Parliament, 10,000 people have died unnecessarily because of smoking-related diseases. Unfortunately, many of our young people are still being tempted. The number is reducing. The number is still reducing, but not fast enough to achieve that goal of being smoke-free by 2025, and so more needs to be done. The journey has been fantastic. We've got smoking out of workplaces. We've got smoking out of bars. Governments led by both National and Labour now have been prepared to increase excise tax, and that's an important component. So we're on the journey. but there is a lot more to be done yet. But this bill does have some very important measures, and we should note them. We all know what they are, but we should note what this bill actually achieves. First and foremost, of course, it gets rid of those tobacco displays. The last bastion of tobacco advertising is gone, and so now people will be free to walk into the dairy without being confronted with this appalling addictive product. Of course, it also clamps down on that covert sponsorship, which is one of the most surreptitious methods by which the tobacco industry tries to reach our young people. It also ensures that internet sales fall into line with what we expect within a dairy or a supermarket, and of course it introduces some penalties associated with breaking the new regulations, and it also increases the penalties for supplying tobacco to young people. It also ensures, tries to tighten up the area of trade rebates and discounts, because that is another way in which the tobacco industry incentivises the retailers to try and sell as much as they can, and to have tobacco products in their dairies, in their supermarkets, in their service stations. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to, obviously there's a number of groups, a number of organisations, a number of people who have submitted, who have lobbied, who have worked alongside members of Parliament to get this piece of legislation through. But there's some people who haven't been acknowledged yet, and I'd like to congratulate them. Those are the retailers who have already taken this step. Even though it wasn't legislated for, they have voluntarily taken this step. I actually know of dairies that do not sell cigarettes anymore. And that might be considered a dangerous step by some retailers, but these dairy owners report no loss of sales. In fact, they're very popular within their local community, and some people go out of their way to go and buy their bread and their milk and their newspaper from those particular dairies because they know that they've taken that step, and they want to congratulate and reward them for doing it. So I don't think retailers have anything to fear from this. It creates a living playing field, first and foremost. Everybody's in the same boat, so retailers certainly have nothing to fear. But I don't think that retailers need to fear that people won't come in to buy their smokes, or that people will be put off because tobacco is not visibly available. I think actually they will be supported and congratulated by their communities around them. Mr. Speaker, as I've said, a lot has been made of the journey, and there are some next steps that we have to undertake. The Minister raised the issue of plain packaging. I think that is something that we do need to move on swiftly. We need to follow the example of our Australian cousins, and we need to be just as brave as the Australians have been as well. They have been challenged by the tobacco industry with all the force of their powerful legal teams that they will have available to them, all the resources of all that money they have made over the years from the poor people who are addicted to the product that they peddle, and they are going to take on the Australian government. Well, we should not be in any way put off by those moves from the tobacco industry. We should confront them head on, and we should support the Australians, and we should go down the same path and introduce plain packaging. There is another thing that I would like, I would have liked to have seen included in this bill, but it wasn't. And in fact, when I considered proposing an amendment to it, it was outside of the scope of the bill, and that is the issue of vending machines. To be honest, it might seem like a small deal, but that is an area. I know you want me to stick to this bill, Mr. Speaker, but that is the next area I think that we need to be considering in the next path, a next step on the journey that this bill is a very important aspect of. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I'd like to thank everybody who has supported this legislation and who has supported those MPs who have advocated for this change to occur during this term of Parliament and before. I'd like to acknowledge everyone who has got us to this point, and I'd like to strongly encourage Parliament to take the next steps that are necessary and to stick to that goal of making New Zealand smoke-free by 2025.
Mr. Speaker.
Call